2018. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mike, it's your turn tonight, right?
Yes.
Okay. Planning board members present and alternate member Sean Winston, regular member David Dow. Niles Shore is absent this evening. The vice chair Paul Bover is here, regular member Nicole Fecto, and alternate Michael LaRue. So for voting purposes tonight, Mike will be a regular member in place of Niles. I'd like to open public comment session. It's open to any resident or property owner in the town of Berwick to come forward and talk about anything that's relating to the Berwick Planning Board. Please keep in mind that we have 4 public hearings for this evening, and you'll have an opportunity to speak at these public hearings on any of the applications that are on tonight's agenda. So feel free to come forward and to public comment session if you feel necessary. But like I said, we have public hearings this evening on 4 different applications. Public comment session's open. Okay, seeing nobody come forward, I will close the public comment session. Also in attendance tonight, we have our town planner. I'd like to welcome you, and if you could just a brief introduction since it's your first meeting.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Lee Feldman. I'm the Director of Planning for Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission. I've been with them for a little over 5 years now. My background has been in planning for, I hate to say it, well over 30 years. I live in Auburn, so I commute quite a distance, even to work. But I love working down in York County and all the communities down here. I serve a number of planning boards on a regular basis. You folks are new to me with Kathy's departure, but I'm typically in Ogunquit, Waterboro, North Berwick, York. I'm now in Kennebunk as well, and soon we'll be helping the town of Kennebunk Port. So I get around.
You're a busy guy.
I am a busy guy. This is my 3rd night this week, so.
This is about as far south as you've been then.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
We're the other Maine here.
For a while, I was doing South Berwick, and I actually just got done helping the town of Elliott as well, so.
Oh, great. Well, thanks. Welcome to Berwick. So,
Great, thank you.
also in attendance is our planning board technician and Town of Berwick webmaster and Facebook administrator and water department billing clerk, James Blismo.
He's kind of like a referee too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a referee thing going on.
Facebook moderator.
Facebook moderator,
Yes.
yeah.
All right, next.
How do you moderate Facebook?
Oh, I'll tell you later. Yeah.
Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the February 15th, 2018 meeting. Paul.
Couple little ones. First one is James misspelt his name. Not James, he is Janes, and we don't have such a lady here. I'd like to fix that one. And then and these are all minor, again, usually I'm a nitpicker. On old business, we have Jeff Oliva, and I believe Oliva is misspelled in many places, so just a cut and paste or just a overall fix. Oliva should be A-L-E-V-A, not A-L-I-V-A.
A control F.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah. Other than that, they're as usual perfect.
Any other corrections or additions? Okay, so the motion will be for approval of the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? And a second. Further discussion. All in favor signify by raising your hands. Okay, it's 5-0. Moving down to public hearings, conditional use application, residential and holistic healing center, services business, professional office, recreation facility, yoga, medical office, family, whole health appointments. Applicant Misty Boyd, address 8 Wilson Street, map U4, lot 140-1. Public hearing is open to any resident or property owner in the town of Berwick. This was noticed in by mailing and also through Foster's, so feel free to come forward and speak directly about just this application only. Public hearing is open. Now, we will be discussing your application in old business as well. So if you want to come forward and talk about this, you're more than welcome to. If not, we could just wait till the, okay, public hearing for just this application only. Okay, seeing nobody come forward, close the public hearing. Next public hearing, conditional use application, medical marijuana production facility, applicant Paper Birch Property LLC, map R70-12-1, address 357 Portland Street. Mr. Oliva.
Good evening.
evening.
I know the public hearing's open, but I'd like to do is kind of give a brief narrative for anybody that's here for, have questions for that, and then I'll step aside, and if somebody's in the public, they can go through. My name's Jeff Oliva. I'm a senior engineer with Civil Consultants, and we're here representing the applicant for this project. We are proposing a medical marijuana facility that follows the Berwick Land Use Ordinance, in particular Section 8.25, which covers medical marijuana facilities. This is the first project to be required by the planning, or to be reviewed by the planning board following the zoning change and zoning requirements of that section. It's also important to note that this is not the first medical marijuana facility in the plan, that there are many existing facilities throughout the town of Berwick, but this is the first one to have review by this board. The project is located in the rural commercial industrial zone, and the proposed project meets the requirements stipulated in the ordinance as we've gone through the process through the acceptance of the application in our previous meetings. The project will have access to the site from Portland Street, which is Route 4. The driveway is directly adjacent from Pond Road, and the project was granted a main DOT driveway permit for that access. The building will be built in phases. The first phase will be a 8,450 square foot single-story wood frame building. When the final phasing is built out, the total square footage will be 19,280 square feet, and it will create a U-shaped building. And again, this will also be a single-story. Everything will be a single-story wood frame building. Parking for the users will be on the interior inside the U of the building. The building will have no windows around the perimeter and will have limited doors. The plans have been reviewed by the police chief, and there have been no issues or concerns by the chief during that review. The plans have also been reviewed by the fire chief, and there have been no issues with the plans based on that review. This site has minimal traffic and will have security, lighting, and cameras. The project has received an MDEP stormwater PBR permit for the site design. And during the initial review, as we've gone to this part, it was really clear that the main concern is really an odor control plan. We had a little give and go in the beginning, but I think we came through at the last meeting with a good plan that covers the details. It gives some good detail for an odor control plan. Again, this will be the first project under review by the board that will have an odor control plan, and this will be the first facility there. So our odor control plan covers the requirements for prior to and during cultivation. It also provides maintenance requirements for the odor control systems, and gives a description of what needs to be done and what is the best practice right now available, which is carbon filtration for the scrubbers. And then I think there's also this plan provides the code enforcement office an avenue to be able to quickly address any odor control issues that come about as far as a violation. Other than that, I can go into more detail, but I'll just sit down and see if anybody in the public has any comments, and we'll go
Okay,
forward
thank
from
you.
there. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing for conditional use application for the medical marijuana production facility on Portland Street. Feel free to come forward if anybody would like.
Hi, I'm Susan Morse at Jordan Street. I'm wondering, I don't know if you can tell me or the applicant, how many plants are expected to be grown in this facility, please? Is that something I'm...
Clarification on the plants.
Yes, just wondering how many plants will be
What type of plants?
Marijuana
What type
plant.
of marijuana plants? Because I know there's different, you've got different, at different stages.
I guess the ones that are allowed under the caretaking, which I assume this is under the caretaking facility, are 6 blooming plants per person, plus the individual caretaker. So that's 36, from my understanding, and I don't know how many caretakers will be in the building, so I didn't know how many plants, blooming plants, I guess we're talking about,
Okay.
will be in the facility. Is that something I can?
Do you have any other questions or comments?
My concern, not questions, my concern is the size of this facility. It seems to be within the purview of the law and the planning board. I think the intent of the state law was so that you could grow marijuana for medical purposes, for a family member, a friend, in your home. I believe this meets the requirements of the law, but is going beyond the intent of the law. This is a huge facility. Whatever is there for odor control, I would be concerned if a brewery was going in there. I think people will smell the operation, because whenever you have organic material, it has to be vented and it has to go someplace. So that is my major concern. And I'm glad there is carbon filtration included in this plan. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Oliva, would you like to address those questions?
Sure. Again, Jeff Oliva, Civil Consultants. I'll do my best. I don't know exactly how many plants will be in there. It'll be dictated by the allocation of the space that goes in there. But no matter how many are in there, it's going to be dictated by what the caregiver's law allows based on the state of Maine. So again, this is a medical marijuana. This is not recreational. It's not allowed, but this is for medical growth, and it'll be dictated by the space that goes on. Right now, we have a large building that could be cordoned off for different caregivers, so those spaces can be smaller, but those caregivers will be ruled by how many plants that they're allowed to have by law.
Initially, you're expecting 2 to be.
Right now,
in there.
we're thinking based on past experience on what caregivers have needed for space is to divide that 8,000 square foot into 2, so each one would have approximately 4,000 square feet. Yeah.
So technically, there shouldn't be more than 72 blooming plants.
Well, blooming plants, but I don't know all the specifics, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know that they can have more plants than that are not
Correct.
blooming, so that there's a cycle. But you're right, there's the 6 per user plus 1 per the caregiver in blooming. But there are other cycles that go through, so I can't sit here and say a number because I don't know that number. But whatever that is, it will follow the rules and regulations of the state of Maine.
All right, thank you.
And getting to the size of the building, again, that is a phased out construction. Our first phase is this one building. Excuse me. And again, we have the odor control plan on file here that we've submitted that would be part of that gives some teeth and gives information about what and how we can control that. And again, this is the first project in the town of Berwick to go through this process and to first project or medical marijuana facility in the town of Berwick that will actually have an odor control plan that will be in the code office. The existing facilities now do not have that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing is still open for this application only. Feel free to come forward. Going once, going twice. Okay, close the public hearing on the conditional use application for medical marijuana production facility on Portland Street. Next public hearing is on the Village Overlay District proposed expansion. This public hearing, once again, the rules are you have to be a property owner or resident of the town of Berwick to talk just about this one particular thing, which is the expansion of the Village Overlay District. This was advertised in the newspaper, as well as all the abutters were given notice via mail. Public hearing is open. Please feel free to come forward to the podium and speak about just this alone. Going once, going twice. Okay, seeing nobody come forward, close the public hearing on the expansion of the Village Overlay District. Next public hearing, amendments to the land use ordinance. This public hearing is open to any resident or property owner in the town of Berwick to talk just about the proposed changes to the land use ordinance. And we will be discussing these proposed changes later on this evening. I could go through them right now. These are essentially some definition changes. So for instance, non-conforming vacant lot, we added an exception for certain major corridors. We identified Route 9 and Route 4 as a use that's permitted in this zoning district. This is for a non-conforming lot, so that a building can go on there, a commercial building can go on there instead of just a residential. Change number two is to define retail use marijuana, and that definition means the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, or selling of marijuana by a retail marijuana establishment or retail marijuana social club as referenced in MRS 7, Section 2442. Number three was the update to fees required to run legal advertisements to meet state statutes. Those rates were essentially doubled in order to.
Sorry.
Am I looking at
Yeah, that's
a different draft?
Yeah, just a trade.
Okay.
That's the most.
I'm so glad you came. Okay, so amendment number four would be the land use table, where retail use marijuana is prohibited until the laws at the state level are determined. After that point, the planning board will review the retail use marijuana definition and land use table. So retail use marijuana is X'd out for all of the zoning districts in the town of Berwick
Until that happens,
until that
until the
happens.
state law gets passed.
Amendment number 5 is a change to section 12.2, and this was just another fee to cover the cost of hearings and advertisements in the newspaper. Amendment number 6 was a change to section 8.3 of the land use ordinance, where we struck out the in F the last part of this section F, which was upon determining that a subdivision's approval has expired under this paragraph, the board shall have a notice placed in the registry of deeds to that effect. So if a subdivision has expired, it's no longer the board's responsibility to place a notice with the registry of deeds. Or it's no longer the town and the board's. Amendment number 7 is a change to section 7.21E, prohibition of non-stormwater discharges. This came at the request of our MS4 representative with the state, who suggested that we put this in here in order to get us into compliance, because it should be in here. So it was a change to allowed non-stormwater discharges at the end of section number 2. We added, as long as they do not cause or continue or contribute to a violation of the state's water quality standards. Also in A, was also added, and dechlorinated swimming pool discharges. And those are the 7 amendments that we have. May I keep this? Thank you. I'll just get rid of this other one. So this is the public hearing for amendments to the land use ordinance only. Feel free to come forward. Seeing nobody come forward, close the public hearing on the amendments to the land use ordinance. Moving on to old business, conditional use application, residential and holistic healing center, service business, professional office, recreation facility, yoga, medical office, family whole health appointments. Misty Boyd applicant, address 8 Wilson Street, map U4, lot 140-1. Misty, before I have you come up, staff, did you have anything? Okay. Okay. Did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Did we have anything? Any questions for
No,
the
I
applicant?
just as a refresher, Misty got her variance from the Board of Appeals. you were missing, I think, 1,400 square feet or something to get to living, for living in the building as well as having your holistic center. And you've achieved that, and now you're back here to get your approval.
Thank you.
All right. I have a lot of stuff here. Do we have findings of fact and any of that?
I guess I'll answer that. No, you don't, but I will have that prepared for you for the next meeting.
Okay, because we were going for a vote tonight on
Yes.
this.
You can still vote tonight and then approve the findings of fact at your next meeting. That is perfectly legal and allowed. And I apologize, but getting up to
I
speed with
understand.
everything has been very difficult, but we will make sure you have them for the next meeting.
Okay. Is the board good with that?
Yes. Yeah, this was a really complete application and thorough.
So instead of, normally we vote, our first vote is to accept the findings of fact, so now we would just accept, or we would just approve the application.
Correct.
What's the best way to word that? Not having our legal member on board, where that's a contingency on something with the findings of fact that we will approve
Correct.
this application. And I know that we've been around the block with this one for a while now, and we know pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But what's to guarantee that the findings of fact will reflect every findings of fact that we need to have? So we need to be able, if you give us findings of fact and they're incomplete, we need to be able to amend them.
You can amend them, change them right there at the meeting on the fly. In fact, some towns just go through a checklist, and that's how they do their findings. Every town does it differently, so there is no standard set legal way to do it, as long as you have approved findings of fact that you feel comfortable with. So I will prepare findings of fact. I will try to find some that Kathy has done for you previously and use the same model. And if there is anything missing or you need to have modified, you can do that with just the stroke of a pen at that meeting and approve them with those amendments.
That's good.
Yep.
The next thing is, if we have conditions of approval
Yes,
and we need to add one or reduce one or do something,
correct.
does that work the same way?
Absolutely. I will, based on tonight's meeting, I will add whatever conditions of approval you want at that time, and then if you need to change them with the approval of your findings of fact, you may do so.
Any other questions? So we're, the motion would be for approval of the conditional use application for, you could read the whole thing if you'd like, or you could say conditional use application for 8 Wilson Street for Misty Boyd.
I'll move that we approve the conditional use application for 8 Wilson Street for Misty Boyd.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that.
Seconded, further discussion? Paul?
To further the discussion that I just had with Lee on, yeah, I'd like to make sure that the motion that we have specifies that we do not have the conditions of approval, especially the conditions of approval as well as the findings of fact before us, and that we reserve the right to deal with that at the next meeting. So just somehow if you could just add those words in there.
We'll do that.
And I don't think there's going to be any surprises on your part, but like usually we have, we do that all in one meeting.
Yeah, we're just in transition with
Yeah, we're
town
in
planners,
transition,
so.
right, yeah.
I understand.
So if you can add just a few words that says, we have that contingency.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So would that be an amended Nicole motion?
You would have to amend you'd have to explain to her what
Paul
that
always
amendment
does
would be.
this.
Why don't you withdraw your motion?
not here.
Why don't you?
I'm
why don't-
going to withdraw my
and then
motion so
why don't
that
you
Paul
make a
can make a
motion?
new motion.
Well, then I'll make a motion that we approve the conditional use approval for 8 Wilson Street, contingent upon the planning board having the ability to modify the conditions of approval as well as the findings of fact.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion on that motion? All in favor signify by raising your hands. Okay, that's 5-0.
I'm used to this from you.
All right.
So I'm just coming back here in 2 weeks.
You can,
You don't even have to come back. You can just watch this on Channel 22.
you can.
The comfort of your own home/business.
But as far as you're concerned, you could start swinging hammers, you know, and
Awesome.
Yeah.
Need nuts. I'll have to
Yoga,
see all
yeah,
of
do
you.
all the yoga you want. Knock yourself out.
what is that light that you have on in the window? Because whenever I drive by there at night, it's like this light, this like fluorescent light.
It's called a tower garden, but it's an indoor growing system. So that's all kale, spinach, lettuce.
I figured you were growing marijuana.
I've had people that are walking by and ask.
I thought it was the goldfish bowl.
It's the beacon of light for Berwick.
All right.
Next on the agenda is conditional use application, medical marijuana production facility. Applicant is Paper Birch Property LLC, map R70-12-1, address 357 Portland Street. Staff, James, did you have anything? Do we have a findings of facts, or conclusions?
Same deal.
Okay. What do we think about that for this application?
This one I'm not comfortable with that on. And the second holding tank wasn't put on this plan. The phase 3 plan, at least the one that I have, I don't. The second holding tank?
Yep, they're on the one I have.
Not labeled, but it's
Where?
right there. See how this one right there?
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh, it's just tiny and,
Yep.
okay. Got it.
Would you work out with the screening? I know that
Yep.
it's come up the last few meetings. Do you have anything else about screening you want to talk about?
I guess it's still our opinion that we feel that with the building itself not having windows and on the backside, and our lights being shielded per the ordinance requirements, that are shielding around the perimeter, is fine. We didn't have any abutters that show up that had questions about the appearance of the building. And then we felt up front here that we would like to proceed with what we had there. If it became an issue, we could plant some white pines, or if it's the purview of the board, I can show, 4 white pines to be planted in that area to shield the parking along this edge on that side.
You have
I guess I
anything,
want, or can we talk about the findings of fact and what goes into them, and as far as conditions of approval go through? Because we would like to have a vote tonight to be able to move forward with that. I see Paul shaking his head no.
I'm not comfortable. I'm not comfortable moving forward on this evening. This has nothing to do with you, and I know that you and your client have been here several times, several months, and I know you want to get this project off the ground. This has nothing to do with you, and this is it's a staffing issue. There was a transition here, and to vote on I don't feel comfortable voting on something that I don't have the findings of facts, conclusions, and all these things clearly outlined, so I know what I'm voting on.
Okay, will we get a copy of those before the meeting? So that we
Absolutely.
can? So is that something that we can get next week, so that we know that we come back in 2 weeks, we can have a clear understanding about what's going to
Absolutely.
move forward on? Okay,
I know we just had the public hearing on
Yeah.
that, and we had one person that had something to say about it. And, and as a board member, I'd like to add a little bit about it. And my feelings are, I think we've covered the air emissions, and you've done a great job covering the air emissions. And I think, like you say, even though there are other smaller ones in the town, this, I think, will be the biggest one, although I know very little about the other ones.
yeah, I think as we look around, there are other ones that have areas that will exceed what our phase 1 and phase 2 would be. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And probably even exceed what our phase 3 would be, so,
But just
yep,
to air things out for air
Yep.
emissions, we are going to have carbon filters, but we may be adding on top of those if things develop, so there is an odor coming out of that building. And we
oh,
have to
agreed.
remember
I
that
think that's part of the maintenance thing, and that's
It
part
is,
of the
yeah.
code
It
enforcement, so
is.
that if
Yeah.
there is an odor, there's
whatever
definitely
issues come about, we're going to fix them.
oh, absolutely, yeah, yep.
And I
That's
wanna
a
be
code
really
issue,
clear
and
on
that's,
that.
That's
And-
part
and
of
the other
any
thing-
use, yeah.
The other thing I want to be sure of, these are the three things I think are important for performance standards for this. The screening, I agree with Sean that we need to cover that better than what we have so far, especially with the clearing that's going to take place on the front along Route 4 with the leach field is going to be for the regular septic tank. And also, we have neighbors, and I was frankly surprised they never showed up at the public hearing, but there are probably 3 or 4 neighbors around the sides of the building, and they may be affected. Now, maybe they have no.
Yeah, but we also have that wooded section that's back there. I mean, I think we could talk about.
Taking a lot of that
we could
out.
Talk about that, but we've got.
Taking a lot of that out.
That, I agree we're taking that out, but we also have a building that is, you know, not a very tall building. It's a single-story wood frame building with asphalt shingles. It's gonna fit into the landscape pretty well in that area. And it's gonna be pretty unobtrusive compared to other items that are other projects and commercial entities that are very close in that same proximity.
I
I think this is, you know,
understand
this
that.
is tucked in a lot.
But when you take the undergrowth out there, all you have are very tall, sparse pine trees. And you're gonna take, I'd say, my guess is half of those out of there to get the building in. And when you get that, it's gonna look pretty much open right there with the undergrowth gone. And that's why I think, you know, we may want some native pines to be there, even though, no matter how beautiful this building is, we may wanna have some screening.
Well, can we hammer that out tonight so that I can adjust the plan? So that we
Certainly.
can, so that I can make it a revision? I mean, I think, you know, as we look at some plantings up along here, along Route 4, I would agree that we can add, a note and show some white pines to be put on there that would fit.
As needed?
As
Or
needed,
something
yep,
that allows,
yep.
I don't know what you wanna put, Sean, on that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, like I said before about the white pines, I think just trying to fill in, because like Paul said, it's a very, you know, the canopy, once you get everything sort of cut out of there, the canopy's pretty high on the old growth. So, yeah, something in that, you know, a couple in front of there. I think, is this wood-sided or is this
It's wood-sided, yeah,
wood-sided, the building?
yeah.
I mean, I think from the side, it's just gonna look like a barn. I don't know if I
Yeah,
really have too much issue from the side.
I don't have an issue from the side or
more of
I
the
just
s-
rode my bike by there
I
yesterday.
think the more screening
Yeah.
is to kind of try to comply with sort of the town's,
Yeah,
you know, the requirements for screening of parking lots.
the
and so
parking lots,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think, you know, and we can add stuff in here, because my thought is that the parking is, you know, shielded by the building.
Yeah.
Our intention here is that wood siding is gonna be painted a dark green.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna
Yeah, I
be
think
pretty
most
unobtrusive.
businesses that have set up along that stretch have done a pretty good job. You know, they're not really, except for the mixed school buses and all that, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think,
And-
I think the building, I mean, you have a copy of our plans in in their package of what the building's gonna look like. I mean, it's a plain building, but
Yeah,
it
it's
is,
very low
it's
building.
gonna have, you know, it's not a pre-engineered metal building. It's a wood building that will have wood siding on that we can then paint and make sure it looks.
But I still like the ability to say, as needed, I would like to have screening in case we need it. And my third
Well,
issue is,
As needed on the front of the building or
On
as
the
needed
front
on the back? Because
and the side, especially the
Really?
Blackberry Hill side.
okay.
Because
I think that's you're leaving too much to somebody else's discretion if you
We
say
just had
as
2
needed.
apartments on Cemetery Road that were built, and we had screening for, I think, three residences.
Because we had people come to the public hearing. I mean,
That's true.
they're putting up metal buildings,
Yeah.
metal storage buildings on School Street that are ugly as all get up that we didn't require any screening for at all. So just because there's going to be marijuana growing in this building is not a reason to require screening, I don't think.
You know, and that Cemetery Road, that was it was old farms, old houses, people lived there this is on the commercial corridor of Route 4.
When you're on Blackberry Hill, David,
I saw
it is
it.
not commercial. It is residential.
I
and
know
there's-
that- I know
You can see the
that.
boats, there's a house right behind there, and the guy's got a boat, and I was standing on the site with still all the trees that are there, and I can see his boat. I mean, plain as, it's close. And I'm just thinking that they may not have been here right now, but, you know, when this thing gets built and the bulldozers come in, you know, it's gonna look different. I just wanna be sure that this is the first time we've had a facility like this proposed, and I don't wanna mess it up. You know, I wanna make sure that we have the ability to add screening, and I also, the other thing, and I'll be done, the other thing I'd like to be sure of is that what you call here irrigation water, I'm wondering if that's the right word for that, or if it should be called process water. And if there may be no issue with that, but when you pump those 2,000-gallon tanks of irrigation water, you can take them to a variety of places without having to shop too far, like the Berwick Sewer District, for
Yeah.
example, or whatever.
Yep.
So is that a problem? And not being a civil engineer, I don't know. Will getting rid of this process water or irrigation water be a problem?
No, it will not.
It will
Nope.
not. So you just drive in?
You drive in just like you would do any other
like Guy's
septic pumping
drives
tank
in,
sy-
He picks
system.
it up, he drives in, and he
Drives it
gets
to the
served.
South Berwick Sewer District and
Alright.
dumps it out there.
So,
Yep.
as long as that's
Yep.
covered, then,
Yep.
you know, I'm done.
Yeah, and again, I know that the concern is because of, and there is some thought about the use of this building. But we are here in meeting the all the regulations
I understand that.
for the land use of,
Sure.
the commercial land use and the sections that
And I
are
don't think
required
we're
for
going
medical marijuana.
overboard yet.
What's that?
We're not going overboard with any of this, you know, the screening or whatever. You know, it's done.
Like I said before, I don't really have issue with the screening on the side. Like Jeff said, it's gonna be a wood-sided building. From the side, and from any of the houses that can see it on Blackberry Hill, I think it's gonna look like a barn.
Seasonally, I mean, once the foliage
know,
starts coming out, I mean,
so,
what trees are there? It might come
You know,
out
it's
a
not, it wouldn't really be much different from them looking at, there's several barns on Blackberry Hill Road. I mean, you're looking at someone else's
But if
barn.
there's an issue that comes up, we may not be able to change it after this thing is approved, and it doesn't say anything about it.
What issue do you think would come up?
I can't tell you that.
I mean,
I mean, the building in 20 years, the wood siding could have a problem where it doesn't look great. There's holes in it.
Or it could be abandoned, you know, I mean, just-
Yeah, I mean, it's,
50
so
years from
natural
now.
screening.
Are you worried that somebody's gonna come once it's constructed and then come here in 12 months from now and say, I live next to it and I don't like the way that building looks? And every time I look out my
You
back
know,
porch, I see
don't
it?
know, but I can see, you know, when you build out to 19,000 square feet for medicinal marijuana, I have a feeling it's going somewhere else. That's my personal feeling, and I could be wrong, but I think it's going somewhere else. And I know that's not in this approval process right now, but that's an awful lot of floor space for very few people.
I don't know. There's an ugly building on School Street where they're growing marijuana that's not screened from the road at all.
But Nicole, this is the first one that's come in for
Yeah.
conditional use.
Well, the thing is, you know, a lot of those properties out on Portland are, I don't know, I mean, obviously I wasn't on the planning board back in the 70s, 60s, when, you know,
So a lot of those
honestly,
are
when you
actually
were, you know, and I
was.
know at that point,
You
at
know-
that time, there probably weren't screening requirements. Now that we have them, we should follow them so we don't continue to go, we just
And
can't
it's
say
not much
just
to
because.
plant some pine trees that will fill in that undergrowth. I don't think.
Where are
But
you
we're
looking
setting-
at putting these?
Right.
I am looking on the west side and the northwest of that site, where there's gonna be some,
This side and this side.
I'm looking right here and right here. Just to fill in whatever gets taken out by the bulldozers. Because
Well, you
you're
know-
looking at 20 feet of big trees there.
Right, and
underbrush.
let's say that this, how tall are the buildings?
Oh, to the peak, I wanna say probably about 18 feet.
Okay,
So we'll
so,
call it 20 feet.
so what kind of trees, what kind of white, are you gonna get adult white pines in there?
No, 4-footers. You know, they'll grow, and you know, in 5 or 6 years, those should take, and that'll start filling in with, there'll be nothing on the bottom of those big trees that are there now, especially when you get rid of half of them.
I mean, this is, I mean, if we look at the two lots that are available on either side of this, they're basically cut. There's no trees on
Yeah, yeah.
any one of those lots.
I'm worried that we're setting a
And if we keep going
precedent.
up Route 4 to the
by doing
commercial barn building that has all the construction equipment out there, that's just as easily seen from
Right.
Blackberry Hill Road as this property, and that has no screening around that property.
Well, that's what I was just saying. I'm worried that that by doing that, by requiring this screening that's not required, we're setting a precedent for any commercial building, for anybody to come in, then, so you're not supposed to be able to see any commercial building from any roads now? Is that the
Well, I'm not saying you can't see it, but at least it looks like it, well, I picture that swath on the west side to be wide open when this is said and done. And if that's fine, because you're gonna lose a lot of those trees that are there. I just wanna replace some of them. But I'm only one person.
If I may,
Sure.
You may.
I think what I'm hearing is that it's not as much a concern about making sure that there's this tight road hedge buffer of trees that's going to hide the building, but maybe some plantings along that side and along the front that make it look a little more natural, so that it's, there are trees that will grow and will fill in, but they're not this tight hedge row of trees.
Correct.
I think, you're looking at something maybe in the order of 6 to 8 trees along that west property line scattered, so that they're not, again, not rowed every 6 feet, but so that it's more natural, so that when they grow in, there's some pines along there. And, I think you suggested, Jeff, maybe 4 along the front.
Yep.
Again, kind of just naturally put out there, so they're not like 4 trees in a
Yeah.
row, but kind of
Mostly because of the
scattered.
leach field, because
Right.
you're gonna have to take.
Just
you're
to
gonna
make
have
it look more
absolutely
natural.
Clear a
Right.
window into the building.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, Jeff, I would say that if we can, since it doesn't sound like you want to approve this night without the findings of fact, that, if you want to, Jeff, take a crack at putting some trees in there kind of naturally.
Yeah, I
fit in.
think I can show some, yeah, I'm
And-
just, I mean, I don't have a problem with the ones, adding some ones on the front, it's the side that it's not a requirement, and it just seems like it's because of this use. If we were doing something else, I don't know if the board would be requiring this. And I don't mean to be like that, but I'll take a look at it and we'll see what we can do and what we can add to that.
Will you do
Yeah.
me a favor, and when you stand like we did in the woods
Yeah,
about less than 2 weeks
Yep.
ago, we stood there and you picture whatever you're gonna take out for trees, and someone
Oh,
like
yeah.
you can picture this.
I can picture it, yeah,
And then picture it with, and you're gonna be rolling all over that underbrush, there'll be none left.
yeah,
Picture that.
yeah, okay. I'll look at the plans and we'll have something on the plan before the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, don't go anywhere. I'm trying to remember, I had it last time, the screening requirements, what,
Are you talking about our waiver request that was for?
yes.
Yeah, I think we would look to pull that away, that waiver request out, now that we've had the discussion with the board and show that,
But I'm just trying to, can somebody refresh my memory on
that
where?
it was, section 7.7, off-street parking and loading.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then it's actually 7.7.5.
Yeah, I think the intent of that, what we have in the ordinance is an actual screen, like a tight screen, which I don't think is what,
For the parking
for
lot.
parking, which I
Yeah.
don't think is what, I mean, what my initial comments were for the front of the building, and
Yep.
like I said, a few
Yep.
pines to help
7.7?
fill in after the old growth is taken out.
Around 45,
Um,
give or take.
that-
You are
I
correct.
guess I disagree with Paul that I think we need it on the side of the
45,
building. I think,
exactly.
like I said, I think it's gonna look like a barn from
Wow.
the side, so.
Okay. Let's look at the screening, specifically what,
All right, so you're talking 7.7.5? Or,
well, I'm talking to the board right
About
now.
Oh, okay.
7.2. That's not, well, a budding residential district or use.
There it is, right there in 7.2. Any non-residential building or use established in or abutting a residential district, and I can count
Or
3
use.
houses I can see,
Or use, which is
Or use.
those, yep.
shall provide a landscape buffer strip to visually screen the use, period.
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily that we're talking mostly about the, these I think we're talking about two different things. I think what you're talking about here is that buffer area.
Well, and the use, it goes on to kind of define that the buffering shall be sufficient to minimize the impacts of any kind of potential use such as loading and unloading operations,
Yeah, it's,
outdoor storage areas, vehicle parking, mineral extraction, waste collection, disposal areas.
yeah, it talks about shielding those, and we don't have any of those.
Right, and you don't
So
have
that-
any of that
So that's
showing.
why
It's
that
really
part
just the
kind of
building,
falls
yeah.
away in
No,
the
that
ordinance,
makes
because we're not,
sense.
we don't have that
Yep.
visible, we don't have a scrapyard
All
or
of
anything,
that's gonna
loading
be
areas.
going on
Everything's inside
in the
and,
front.
and hidden by the building.
Right.
Everything's inside that area, away from that, and is screened by the building, away from the abutters.
Except for the gravel fire access lane, it's gonna be a fairly quiet back of the side of the building.
Yeah, there's no doors or windows around the back of the building.
But it is still 12-foot wide gravel
Yeah,
fire.
yeah, and that was
access
required
lane.
by the fire chief. Yep.
So there'll be not much there, that's my point.
Yeah, it's gonna, and like I said, I'll show some white pines to be put in there. I'll take a walk out there and see where the scatters, areas are, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Any other loose ends that we want to tie up tonight? Because in 2 weeks, we should just plan on just voting findings of facts, conclusions, and then the application, approving the application. Do we have anything else that's up in the air? This was the only thing that we were going to come back and talk about tonight.
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
Yeah. All right, I'm sorry we can't do it
That's
this
okay.
evening,
No,
but
I'm glad I have the direction on that, and we can make those changes, and I can, I'll talk with Lee J about what's going on, and we'll get it squared away and get it taken care of.
yep, 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
So that would be on the 15th.
15th, yep,
Thank you.
great, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Village Overlay District proposed expansion. Now, we approved this at our meeting 2 meetings ago. We approved recommending that we pass this on to the selectmen. And we had to schedule a public hearing anyway, so we really don't have to act on this evening, since we already recommended submitting it to the selectmen for, right? Yeah, we did.
I think so. And it's only for the one side of the street right now.
Did we? I didn't see that in the minutes.
Was I dreaming? I don't really dream about planning board meetings, but Paul, you would know.
It's too close to the past for me to read. The question is, the changes that we want to make, where they are? Or is that, I think this is what we're talking about, changing this line, including these lots here, right? It's not the R1-A-B-C.
No.
No. So I think our discussion was wrapped around that we actually, in the beginning, when we created the Village Overlay District, we wondered whether we should include those, and we decided that we would just take it one step at a time. And I think with the Misty Boyd application, we were kind of learning that maybe we should have done it in the first place and wrapped that line around Estabrook a little wider.
See, because of you, see what you did? You're rewriting land use.
Blame it on
Changing the
Misty,
whole
right.
town, Misty.
I know. I think I know what it was. We did vote on the amendments to the land use ordinance. That's what we approved and scheduled a public hearing.
But you're saying we did not include this?
Correct.
I know we discussed it in that same meeting.
Yeah, but we didn't
I
include
know we
that.
we had a discussion about it because we also
No,
discussed
I
the
think
opposite
what
side of the
happened is
street
I think
as
you
well.
guys voted to approve the Burns, 55 School Street.
So,
Remember it was Burns. Burns was the first application.
Yes.
I think you approved that to recommend to the selectmen, and then
And I think we went on
Yeah,
to
but-
add these other lots as
Oh,
well.
Yeah,
correct,
there's
because
been
we
a
had
couple
to,
other things, and I think this young lady is.
I attended that meeting as
Yeah.
well, and it's because we didn't actually get a public hearing notice in the mail, and that's why it was re-added, I think.
okay, well, here we are. Any questions about this map?
No, I think it makes sense this way. It's,
You pretty much
Leaving-
go up to Aroma Joe's and the car dealer
Yeah.
right next to it.
Yeah.
yeah, then what we had additionally discussed was the possibility of the opposite side of the street.
Correct, yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
But that doesn't actually abut the original village overlay,
And
technically.
somehow I thought this change to the map was gonna be included in the village overlay, that's the expansion. I thought it was gonna be included with the amendments to the land use ordinance because it's changing the map of the land use ordinance. But apparently not, so.
That's what I
Oh,
thought
Oh,
too.
the zoning map?
Yeah.
The zoning map is it lives outside of the land use.
It does,
Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
what, yeah. I wasn't considering that, but,
Yeah. The official map is in the hallway.
yeah. This is, I think, the first time we've ever changed the map also, ever, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think we've ever changed that map.
So
Well,
we don't know what
aside-
we're doing.
Yeah. Aside from like changing the urban overlay district to the village overlay district, and then
Right.
you expanded the urban overlay district into Esterbrook, and then renamed it village overlay district.
Any questions on this?
Nope.
So the motion would be for approval of the Village Overlay District proposed expansion and recommending approval by the select, or this has to go to a town meeting, so.
Yep.
And forwarding on to the selectmen.
And it will be voted on separately at the town meeting.
Mhm.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the expansion of the Village Overlay District to include the new lots and as shown in this map, and that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they have our approval.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your hands. Okay, it's 5-0. All right. Amendments to the land use ordinance and subdivision regulations.
Yeah. That's tab what? Tab 4 or something? Tab 5?
Four, five,
Tab 5.
Yeah. 4, 5, what is it?
I think it's 5.
Oh, there it
Five.
is.
This one, the one that you didn't have.
I do have it.
Starting to
but-
figure out your filing system.
That's good.
Wasn't easy, but.
Keep you on your toes.
Well, I just went through this a little while ago, so does anybody have any questions on this? Or?
I can kind of just run through it real quick again, just to give you an idea of like, so Amendment 1, this is, we're getting rid of the map in section 6.4 because the map can change and then the map will be differing. So for example, we can change the map, but then we'd have to amend the land use ordinance. So it just makes more sense to just take it out of section 6.4. So that's what Amendment 1 is. Amendment 2, they've already covered it. That's pretty straightforward. 3 is also rather straightforward, just defining, and that comes from the state. And Amendment 4, that was something that was hashed out as well. The one thing I want to ask you folks is the note there, the little notation, is the retail use marijuana is prohibited. That sentence, do you guys want to keep that in there or take it out?
I like it.
I thought so too, because there's been lots of discussion, and then
Yeah.
it's not like you guys are doing the prohibiting
Not
it.
like we've decided to outlaw retail marijuana. This
Yeah,
is
no,
what
it's
it
just
is.
until the
Yeah.
state,
Yeah, I mean, the
Till we
whole
get some
state is
direction from the
waiting
state.
until the
Yeah.
state legislature figures out what the state laws
and
are.
then we can take our position from there, and direction from there.
No, definitely leave it in.
And then just on section 5, I changed that a little bit because I had a sentence in there, if it had to be noticed twice. It's gonna have to be noticed twice anyways, because it'd be an amendment to the land use ordinance or the zoning map. So that just simplified it for Amendment 5. And then Amendment 6, I know Niles questioned it, and Kathy's recommendation was to get rid of it because of the staffing and everything. So I didn't know I just didn't want to seem like it's thrown back in there if you guys said no or if you guys were leaning.
But effectively, all that really does is if someone proposes a subdivision's approved, and they sit on it for a certain amount of time, and nothing is done, it's a null and void subdivision by law, and it's not our responsibility to go to Alfred, to the county courthouse,
Yep.
and add some, because it costs money to do that, you have to need an attorney, and it's a, you know, whoever buys that property should know by going to Alfred themselves, when they do a title search, that that subdivision is null and void. That's, I think it's that simple. So,
And then, yeah, 7, Dave covered already, so that's all I got.
Any questions? We good with this? So motion would be for approval of the amendments to the land use ordinance and subdivision regulations and recommend to the selectmen that they approve and put it on the town ballot. There's my
You wanna
motion.
Make a big motion?
I just made a
Oh, that was your
motion.
motion? Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your hands. Okay, 5-0. No new business scheduled
Wait,
this
Dave, can I just
evening.
make one?
Yes.
I don't like to go backwards, but on the map for the changes to the village overlay map, I feel like there needs to be some sort of identifier on this piece of paper saying what, you know, like
key.
a
Yeah, I mean,
date or.
that was pulled
on the outside.
from a larger map that has the key on it.
Okay,
So there, I mean,
so as long as we're not sending this to the
No.
select board and saying, this is the map, and they're like, there's no way to identify where this map came from.
What town are we in?
Yeah, so,
no, I
don't
got you.
care.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, just, that's fine,
Good point.
clarify that.
All right, I got some, I always love getting mail at town hall, so. And the first one I got here, I don't know if I should open it, it's from the Underwoods. I wonder what this
Are you
could
supposed
be.
to open it on camera? Is this like
Oh, it's
Well, it's
protocol?
public.
it's about 3 pages long, and they're questions, so
Oh,
I
boy.
don't think they're necessarily questions for,
Okay, maybe for a different time. When
yeah.
You can read it and at the next meeting, give us the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
Just to show that I've received it on camera.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
For the record.
I think this was a CC. For the,
Board of Selectmen have an item in their agenda, and it's the correspondence, I think.
and the next one here, Berwick Sewer District. Okay.
Is that your sewer bill?
No,
They're sending it to
did you
town
get
hall
this, James? Regarding an possible preliminary submittal for Bodwell multifamily, 115 Old Pine Hill Road?
I probably should, I'll take that.
Aren't you like the sewer guy or you're the water guy? I
Does
can't-
anybody want me to read this?
No.
Okay, it has to do, it's addressed to the town manager, and it has to do with the prime tainting land transfer, so. I'll be reading that this evening.
By Aiden?
So, you know, the only thing I'll just say is thank you for being here. I know you have tons of stuff going on. James, you do a fantastic job. I'll just reiterate, like Niles would if he was not here, if he was here, that, you know, because we don't have a full-time town planner, we can't let things slip through the cracks. I'm not blaming anybody here at all. I'm just saying if the selectmen if the budget does not call for a full-time town planner, and we're not going to be getting one after we lost our last full-time, you know, we're going to have some issues that come up like they came up tonight, through no fault of your own or James, through no fault of your own, but, you know, especially as we're getting deeper into things, we can't have somebody from Southern Maine Planning who will be here for 6 months and then leave, go on to something else, and someone has to be completely focused on the town of Berwick. Once again, that caveat there, it's not you. I just wanted to throw that out there. The other thing that I have, there's a small consensus of people that I've run across that think that there is a approved subdivision of apartment buildings going in across the street in the prime tanning lot right now, that it's been approved. There's also people that think that the Blackberry Hill 90-unit subdivision's been approved. Neither of these have been approved. Nothing has been approved across the street. As far as I know, there is no discussion between any town official, at least me or anybody on this board. There is nothing approved. Nothing is going in there.
Or submitted.
Or submitted. I don't know how many times I can say it. It's all on record. There's nothing approved going in there.
It doesn't matter what you say on TV. It matters what somebody posts on Facebook, Dave.
I would say, Dave, I commend you on your response on the social media page.
I don't like to get into, I don't want to be that, get
The
into
thoughts that
a
were
high
going through
school.
my head were not that nice.
Well, no, you know what, and
I
I
didn't
don't,
see
and I,
it, so
and I
I'm
don't,
glad.
you know, and I think that, you
It
know,
was very diplomatic.
sometimes I feel very high schoolish saying things like, oh, I saw on Facebook, but my kids tell me that only old people are on Facebook now anyway, so.
Yeah.
Until Berwick gets a Snapchat account.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's just, I see stuff and I'm just going to state the facts. I'm not going to state my opinions on things, you know, and it's, yeah, nothing's been approved. Nothing's even come to us. I don't even know if Mark Cahaya exists in the flesh. I have never met this person before in my entire life. I know that he exists because people have had
People
interactions
get
with
emails
him.
from him sometimes.
Oh, he comes in on an umbrella once in a while.
Exactly. So there's nothing that's in the works here. The only things that we discussed, like the last meeting, we talked about that ratio, maybe looking at that ratio, bringing back that ratio to have that assurance that we have commercial and residential good mix in there. But for now, nothing is planned. The town doesn't even, the town still owns that property.
I would say what I found disappointing about that was that we go months and months. We have open for public comments twice every meeting, 2 meetings a month, and nobody shows up. And then, you know, everybody starts to spout off on social media about what they
and
think
then
is
they all
happening-
come out of the
happening.
woodwork because they can sit there at their
You know,
computers and
but,
do it.
But nobody comes
Not be
down
on
here
camera.
and talks to us and talks about it. And that to me is like, that's disappointing. It's like, I
Well-
want to tell people to show up or shut up.
And I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. That's another thing too. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, you know. I don't even have Tom Wright's email, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't hang out with town manager. We're just doing what we're supposed to be doing here. It's
Yeah.
not like we're in cahoots with anybody. So I feel
Go
fine
down
with
that whole
the planning
Facebook
board.
rabbit hole and spend
Yeah.
days going back and forth with people. It's like, come down and talk about it.
Please come down if you're listening at home or watching online later on. Please come down and ask questions. We'd be more than happy to, you know, and that property that's still for sale on Blackberry Hill Road across from the elementary
Can
school.
I chime in? I
That
was
wasn't
here when that
approved.
went in. So first of all,
That wasn't approved.
Yeah.
subdivision.
one of the things that we're voting on for the changes to the land use ordinance ties in with that.
It
Because
does.
that started out being senior citizen 55 and over, not unlike Terra Estates in Rochester, where you own your unit, but there's no subdivision of land. So it's modular housing. It started out being 120-something units. It got shrunk down to 90 when they found a special turtle out there. And then
Spotted. Spotted. Not special.
Landing.
Landing.
And that slowed it down for a while, but it got approved, so it's a 55 and over, 90-unit subdivision, very few kids. The biggest problem, we had them do a traffic study because we were afraid of the school across the street. Traffic study came back, don't worry about it, old people don't drive around very much, type thing. And then it kind of went away because the gentleman who wanted to do this, who had done
Well,
it
the economy
before,
tanked.
the economy tanked and he had a heart attack or a stroke or something. And it really slowed him up for a couple years. And according to Southern Maine, SMPDC, they will have to resubmit a brand new plan
Correct.
when that goes in.
And there'll be a new
But-
public hearing.
That's right, and nothing has been seen at all yet.
They're not that as a real estate agent in town. I haven't had anybody come to me with interest in that parcel. I mean, there's no big aching for developers to develop parcels where they have to jump through hoops. They want to develop parcels that are easily developable not that. I mean, just monetary, you know, costs a lot of money to put a road in there and deal with the public and this and that.
And
so.
that was going to be a 4-phaser.
Yeah.
The first phase was just a little teeny-weeny front with the clubhouse and, you know, whatever they have. And then they're going to have another layer. It was, the build-out was several years. And 55 and over, I mean, I like old people.
I do too. I think they're great.
They're all my friends.
But that's what the amendment will say, that it will prevent that, because after 3 years, that subdivision plan would be void.
Right.
Exactly.
But it
But-
isn't now, but
Well, maybe somebody could
no,
post
it
something
is
about
shown.
that.
But I thought it was that if somebody bought it, they could develop it based on exactly
Has
what.
to be identical.
Has to be identical.
What we approved, however, the
Yeah.
DEP permits, that's something
That's gotta be
completely
redone.
different.
Okay.
And many, many, many things have changed in 10,
12
10,
years.
12
like
years.
12 years
yeah.
ago that it was approved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There would be a full review there.
yeah.
And it would be open to the public hearing, the whole bit.
I wonder how many people would show up for that public hearing. Boy.
You know, we don't have a
Well, we've
growth
had people
ordinance
show
in
up
this
based
town.
on just the for sale sign, so.
You know, we don't have
No,
a,
they didn't show up. They showed up online. They didn't show up here.
Somebody
They-
did show up. One
person.
A butter
Yeah.
came down.
They were invited to show up here personally.
we don't have a growth ordinance. I know not North Berwick does. I know a lot of it, like Elliott, they only give out like 13 building permits a year. It's something ridiculous like that.
We do have rules, though.
But we do have rules out in R3 because we
Yes.
want to keep
3
R3.
lots per year per
Exactly.
subdivision.
Yeah.
You know, the land use ordinance is what it is. If people have a problem with it, they're more than welcome to come in here and say, I want to stop all subdivisions going into R1. Great, let's talk about it. Let's see why. But the law is the law. We can't deny a property owner the right to develop his own property, his or her own property, by law.
Right.
As long as they're able to have that use there. We can't. Our political opinions about anything and whether or not we want people moving to town can't come in the way of that. You know, I don't like seeing farmland
Turned into
turned
5
into
lots out on
yeah. Every
Blackberry
time I
Hill
drive
Road. Yeah.
down Blackberry Hill Road or Cranberry Meadow Road, and I just see these old farms, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen in 10 years from now when, you know, the kids don't want it anymore. It kind of breaks my heart, but it's their land.
Like, I can defend Blackberry. A good part of Blackberry Hill now is in conservation or farmland. I'd say about half of it, acreage-wise. And it seems to be mostly going in that direction.
Yeah.
Not entirely. But, you know, so it'd be nice to reserve farmland for future generations. And that's one
Well,
of the
future
things in our
generations aren't
comprehensive
interested
plan.
in farming that much.
That's not true.
They're not
We
overly
have a
interested
brand
in
new
it.
young farmer and his wife that are building, was it Orange Circle Farm on Blackberry Hill?
Oh, well, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I-
that's through
I
Maine
think there is a-
Farmland Trust.
I think there's definitely a shift, people looking for locally grown food and so forth, so. And that's why
We'll all
I
be
think
marijuana farms.
you know, I think we need to start pushing.
Could be.
We need to
At some
start.
point, that'll implode too, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the market will flood.
Yeah, that's,
I think we should expand the farmer's market.
Yes.
From just winter to try to get it year round.
Okay, we can't solve all
right.
the problems in
No.
Berwick tonight, guys.
Yes, we can. Let's do that.
I got enchiladas to eat.
All right. Anybody else? Anything else from the board?
Yeah, come to us,
Informational
all of us.
items?
have we reached the end of the agenda?
Not yet.
No, we're getting there though.
All right, public comment session. Second round of public comment
All
session.
right, thank you. I just want to add my 2 cents for additional buffer at the medical marijuana facility. And I agree with Mr. Oliva, it is because it's medical marijuana, because I know in York, off of White Birch Lane, where it went in, the neighbors complained of cars going in all hours of the night, and the headlights bothered them. They could see them coming through their windows. So any buffer that can protect that, I think, would be a good idea here. That's all. Just want to add my 2 cents to that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else for public comment session? Sure.
I'm Allison, 62 School Street.
Allison,
I'm
what's your last name?
Gallant. Troy's not with me tonight. I'm just asking once again if the board would consider adding the south side of School Street into the Village Overlay District. I know
That
we
is on
talked
our,
about it.
That's on our list of things to look at for the next go-around of land use ordinance amendments, yes.
So my question is the timeline on that. When will that discussion
Be looking at
continue?
November's meeting.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
But don't give up. I mean, keep coming in and remind us because we forget a lot of stuff.
Or go on social media and post about it. We'll get it. We'll hear about it.
I think, we didn't add that this go-around because of, I think because of notification.
because of
or-
notification.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those things that we just kind of threw it out at the last minute.
Yeah, it came up at the meeting
Yeah.
when we were talking about the other one. and-
Yeah.
Mail, like all these of surrounding people.
All right, adjournment.
It's like,
Yeah.
I move that we adjourn the March 1st Planning Board meeting, 2018.
Wow.
I second it.
All in favor? Wow.
Great
Four
meet-
public hearings.
Great meeting.